When working with patterns for Pergamano or Parchment Craft, there's a whole lot of detail on these that slow down your computer, so it's important that you close everything down that you're not using, because it's very memory intensive. I'm looking for Amanda's got all the free files that are really pretty. If you sign in, you can download for free all of her free files. So you click on free patterns. I just type in Amanda Pergamano and it takes me right to her site. So the one that I was working with, see if I can find it, was this mini grid card. As you can see, every one of those little dots is a design detail. And the design details, they're huge when you break these apart. So I do my best not to have to break it apart. So you can download the pattern by clicking on it and just save it. It opens in a Word document. So you open up Word, and rather than use it in Word, I like to use it in PDF because it creates a vector PDF. These are actually vectors in the file. But there's a lot of details in here I don't need, such as the instructions here. So what I'm going to do is print to PDF. I'll just use my Adobe PDF. You can use whatever printer you have, and I'm just going to print the current page. So I'm printing this to PDF. It's number 44. All of her files are just numbered. And now I can close down Word, maybe, and go back to make the cut. To get this in, since it's a PDF file, I'm going to click on PDF Import at the top of the screen. It's the PDF icon. And I'm going to look for 44. And you'll see over here an image, but it's in, let's see if it has strokes and it has fills, and I don't want both or I'll get double everything. So I'm just going to do strokes. Those are the lines, and click on Open. I wonder if I did fills. Oh, that might be better. Gives me less details. If you want to import the picture of the flower in the middle, you have to bring it all in. Might be a good idea to bring those in separately, but I'll just open it as I have. Now you notice that there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tiny dots, and each one of those takes up a lot of memory. We've got some sample file size dots here that could be useful in creating your own. I think this is just for checking your needle size for hand tools. What I'm going to do to try to get rid of a lot of detail, because I'm not sure how much I'll be able to do before my software shuts down. I made a really big eraser. I wonder if I can make a 50mm eraser so that I don't have to split or break this. I'm just going to erase all this part that I don't need because it's extra detail. Oops, undo. It's a little bit. If I hold down Control, and I think I'll save some of these. I'll change this back to my normal 1mm. I'm just going to get rid of some of these extra lines. Now I still have a lot of detail that could bog down my system. In order to work with it, I really need to put things on their own layers. It would all cut if you wanted it all cut, but there's a score line here. All these little things are piercing holes that you would want pierced using a piercing tool or your blade. The flowers here would be drawn with a pen or an embossing tool, so those would need to be on their own layer. And each of these dark spots here in columns would be the cutting lines, because they're really supposed to be stars. And the center pieces here are embossed with an embossing tool, so they'd have to go on their own layer. And the only way to put these on their own layer is to split them apart. If I click on split, you see that it's gone into getting these all separated out. What I like to do is get rid of as much detail as I can and just kind of group them. And it makes your computer really slow. Once I have a section grouped, I send it to its own layer. And it takes some time, so I hide that layer. Might do a few more. I did some of this earlier and saved it, so I might jump to that. So all these outline outside pierced piece things, I just select a little bit at a time, send them to their own layer, and hide them so that I can work with some of the inside detail unhindered. So I'm going to hide that. I'm going to just go across the whole bottom. Join those. Send it. Hide. Now you really have to like the design to want to work with it like this. If you wanted it all just cut, it would be simple because you could go ahead and cut it all. But since I want part of it embossed, I'm going to select all these flowers and hide them because in the card itself, these are actually just painted on the back. So you could paint them or emboss them or draw them with a pen. We will be working from the back of the card, and we'll hide those. And now with that hidden, I'll send my score line. Because the part I really wanted to show you is how I work with the pattern. The pattern can be used for many, many different projects. As I move all of these, I usually label what they are if I'm going to keep them. Oh, I see I missed part of the flower here. Now, instead of working with every little piece here, what I like to do is get rid of a whole bunch of them and just work with part of it that can be duplicated. So I'm just going to hit delete and then maybe send this top one to its own layer. And I don't think I need these. Now I'm going to zoom in on these really close. I probably don't need this, so delete it. Okay, so now I get a closer look at these, and I can work with just a few pieces, and then I can duplicate them again. So with my selection arrow, I'm going to click on these dark pieces that are all going to be cut, and with my shift key down, I'm selecting all the cut pieces. Once I have them, I'm going to join them, send them to their own layer, and hide them. And I'll do the same thing over here. This is not quite exactly the same as that one because this over here is going to be the right edge of the card. I'm going to click on the shape, hold the shift key, and get all my pieces that are to be cut here, join them, and send them to their own layer. Now I'm going to click this one and hold a shift, and this one, need to show it first, select both of these, send them to their own layer, and call these cut. So I have to label these as I do them, or I will get lost as I try to work with the card. The next thing is I'm going to select all of the circles, which are my embossed pieces that I will do with an embossing tool. And in order for them to emboss properly, they will need to be filled with the nested fill. So I'm going to join these, send them to their own layer, and I'm going to write emboss and hide that. The rest of these are all, not all of them. Let me undo that. The rest of these center ones are pierced. So I need to get these center ones. I'm going to undo that join. As I grab some center pieces. Hide that. Around the center, these 5 little pieces here, or 7 little pieces, are pierced. So I'm going to send them to their own layer and call that pierce. And hide those. Now the rest are stippled, meaning that the piercing tool is going to create a little bubble, but it's not going to punch all the way through. That's the only difference between it and the piercing tool. These are stipple. So I use about half the pressure for stippling as I do for piercing, but I use the same tool. So now I'm going to hide that, and we'll do the same here. Send these to their own layer. I'll join them, hide, and get the center ones, because these are the ones that are pierced. Join those. Now I'm going to put all of these that are pierced, hold a shift key, send to their own layer, and join and call those pierced. Pierce. Hide that. These are stippled, so I'm going to open all the stippling and send them to their own layer holding the shift key. And hide those. I need to work with these 2 sets of embossing lines, so I'm going to join those, and we'll call that emboss. And in order for them to emboss correctly, I need to create embossing lines inside using duplicate nested. I'm going to do a minus 0.01 with 5 counts to fill those circles up with lines. If I don't put additional lines in, all we get is a drawn circle on our vellum. And if we want that to be raised like a bubble, we have to do the nested settings to get several lines in for a nice embossed design. So now we have our embossing lines that are all ready to go. So I'll get rid of all the empty layers, and let's see what we have for this, just this little design here. We have stippling, we have the piercing, we have the cut, and this is the main part of the design that we're going to duplicate down. So to do that one, I'm going to go to Edit. Well, before I do that, what I want to do is I want to put this in my collection of under Basic Shapes. So I'm going to go to Export, Selection to Basic Shapes, and I'm just going to call this Embossing Fill 42. So if I want to use this again for another project, I can. And one thing that they did, if you look on the picture here, is you'll see that these are actually stars. So they use scissors to make them into stars instead of the little heck, but these are six-sided shape. So I could replace those with stars if I wanted to. To do that, I would just select a star in Basic Shapes, a six-sided 6-point star. Maybe this one would be a bit better. And rotate it, then resize it down to fit that. The dots there, fit over it. So that's how you can modify these to make them what you want them to be. I leave that star up there because you can replace those. But what I want to do now is just duplicate this design down. So I'm going to this time do regular duplicate, and I want only one column, but I want 7 rows, and I need them to be pretty close here. I think 0.03. That looks about right. And I'll know if it's right when I open up the rest of the card, because there's some alignment dots. But let's just show all and see what we've got now. Back out of this. One thing we don't have yet is any outside cut lines, because in this, when you do Parchment Craft, when you punch these holes, you either use scissors or you just perforate with your fingernail and tear along the edge. But instead of doing that, I'd really like the cleaner look of some outside lines. Now it's pretty easy to draw lines around here on the straight edges, but on these zigzag things and on the zigzags over here, I think I would like my computer to generate those cutting lines. So what I'm going to do is hide everything except, let's say, I want to keep my stippled lines there, my dots. Yeah, those are the ones I want to keep so that I can shadow them. There we go. So I can hide all the rest. Now if I select all of these and do a shadow, and I'll just leave it at about 02 and accept, then I can get rid of all the inside lines and just keep the outside lines. This didn't join here too well, but to open them, I just click on it using the node editing tool and delete one piece so I can see what I'm working with, and delete a little piece here, and then I can break all of this and delete the inside line. So now I have an outside line that is very close to my original line, and I'm going to select the end point here and just join with the line and I'll draw a line in there. And we'll go to the green mat so you can see that. So now I have a full card. If I'm going to use a score line on that center, can make that a dashed. So now I have layers for everything that I want to do. I can show all. And the things that are all going to be cut, these, this is going to be cut. So I'll select that, and I don't know what these are. It's part of my shadow layer. Anything that's going to be cut, I'm going to put it on its own layer. And join all those and move it to the bottom. And now I can send it to my cutter layer by layer. So this one is my score. That one will actually be done when I do the cutting, so I can have this layer. I'll hide all, and I'll show this layer and this layer to do my cutting, and I'll show the other cutting layer. Emboss, stipple, pierce. This is part of the draw. So I'll go ahead and cut that. These are also cut. So I get lost when I don't label them right. But these two, I can hold Shift and send them to their own layer, and that way when I'm ready to cut, I will cut all of these together. If I want to see how they're going to look, I can just join them, and you'll see that these will be cut out. If you don't have a piercing tool, you can use your blade tip. It'll just bounce up and down for all these tiny little holes, and it works fine. The piercing just gives it a little cleaner look, but you won't see circles. As you see in this design here, there are lot of circles, but they won't cut out as circles because they're so very tiny. If I take this back to the page size, you'll see that you can't even see the circles here. This card is only not quite 5 inches wider. It's almost 4 inches tall. It's designed to be a little gift card. So it does take some time to create these, to transfer them from hand piercing to cutting files, but in doing it, no, I shouldn't have moved it, huh? Lost all my details. In cutting them, you save so much time, because when you do it by hand, each one of those holes you have to make by hand, and it is very, very tedious. So, do we have any questions about that?
Yeah, so Kay says, what was Amanda's name that you Googled for to get that site?
I just Googled Amanda Pergamano. It's actually amanda-craft.com .tw, and then you can just click on the free pattern download on the side. But you can't get those until you register or sign in, because it'll show you the pictures, and I sometimes forget to sign in and wonder why I can't save these patterns. But they have a nice picture, then they have a download for the pattern, and then they have, on a lot of these, they have this pattern included the instructions in the pattern, but a lot of these have step-by-step assembly instructions in addition to that on the page here. So it's very helpful. Probably I think this is the best free site that I found in all my searching. And you see here how these are all painted. So you could draw these out with pens and do embossing fills if you wanted. I think it would be very nice with a fine embossing tool or a engraving tool to engrave the outer edges and the lines, and then you color with oil colors, or what they call dorsa pens, on the back side, which is the side you cut from, to create the color. So either white or colored would be very pretty. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, Barbara made a comment that she said, Julie, the dots you said are stippled are actually small embossed dots done on a grid. I would do them with an embossing tool.
Yes, you could do them with an embossing tool. They work fine. I've done it with both. I get a kind of a better impression. Either way would work. You can experiment. See the holes here? These are kind of a nice effect around the raised embossed thing. So yes, you could do all of these with an embossing tool. The difference is that I might flip my embossing tool to use the fine tip, because when I do this kind of embossing for these bigger things, I use my medium tip for embossing, and then these I might use my small tip. My engraving, no, my piercing tool does a fine job with that, just with half pressure. So either way.
Okay, and then Leslie asks, when you do the backside, do you mirror the pattern?
If there were words there, yes. If there was any text, you would want to mirror it, because you are working from the back side of the card.
And that looks like all the questions. Any other questions for Julie?
Now, one person took me up on the homework assignment last week, and I sent her all my patterns, because she sent me one. So I will send you all the patterns, and hers included. And now I think I have over 40 patterns. So if you want some patterns, you got to send me one that you've done. As you can see, it takes some time to get these converted to cutting files, and it would be really nice to have a whole big collection if everybody just did one. Just a little encouragement there.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Julie? Oh, wait. What was the homework? Leslie asks. I guess that's from last week. What was the homework last week?
Okay, the homework is to find just one little motive like this, one little idea from a pattern, and send it to me, and then I'll send you my collection of all the little ones. Let me look at my collection here. I don't even remember what the file name was. Open. Let's see. All right, these are the ones I showed last week. So you get all of these fill patterns if you send me one. Now this is the one that Sandy sent me. So you get all of these, and you can use these as fills. I showed you last week, if we get the recording put up, I showed you how to fill a design with these, just using the Boolean join, the duplicate and Boolean join. So we have these different designs. When you multiply them first, you get the bigger patterns like these. And then when you have a pattern, this is a stippling pattern, then you can add them to your design like we did last week. And you can create a project like I did with this card here. Now, I'm not asking that you do a whole project, just that you send in a piece, and what I'll do is I'll send you this entire file. And then you can use these fills to fill in shapes of the designs that you want to fill. And if you have a design that has multiple parts, you can put each part in a different fill, and it's very, very effective. I showed some of those pictures last week. So, any questions on that?
Nope. And then Barbara just said she can send pictures of hand-done ones, but she doesn't.
Yes.
I told her she could either send them to you or me or post them on the thread, a thread on the forum. Then Leslie says there are some leaves on that site that look just partially embossed, the ones that are drawn with a white gel pen. But I guess that's back to, yeah.
I use, I really enjoyed using my white gel pen. And you can also, if you don't have an embossing tool, you can use an old ball tip pen that has no more ink, and you can emboss with that really well. So, yeah. I want to see your work. Share your stuff, hand or machine done. I just think there's a lot you can do by hand, and yes, you can finish these up by hand if you want. There's a lot I can't do because of arthritis in my fingers, and I don't have the patience, to tell you the truth, to do it all by hand. I think I took a class on this years ago, and the project I did was a fan. I loved it. It was so beautiful. But I kind of didn't do much more after that, and did a little bit when I got my machine. I just wanted to know if the machine could do it. But once you have your projects converted to cutting files, then you're ready to go. It's great.